What's up, everybody, to a brand new episode of Over the Top Talk. I'm your host, Owen, and today I'm going to be interviewing UFC Lightweight Fighter Mike Davis. How we doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Doing great. You gotta liven up though. Sound a little dull. Listen, brighten it up.
All right.
Good day.
All right. Do you want to start with telling the people a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. I'm Mike Davis. I'm a UFC lightweight, 4-fight win streak. Um, Man, I'm a big gamer. I make content outside of the cage. That's what I do pretty much for a living. Um, Trying to become a full-time content creator, videographer, streamer, and all. That's pretty much it for me. Looking to get back in there as soon as
Per-
possible after my bicep injury.
Perfect. And what kind of inspired you to start martial arts and fighting?
I have no idea. There was really nothing that made me want to fight. I feel like I needed to learn how to fight because of the bullying of my childhood. So now that I'm, capable of defending myself, I feel more complete with my life. Like I don't know. I made up for something I was missing as a kid.
Yeah, it's always great to hear. With fighting comes the mental part and then like the physical part. Can you kind of walk us through how you handle those two things?
For mental in a fight or for fighting, mental for fighting, I actually like to talk to a friend of mine, Micah. He's over at the UFC PI. He's a mental therapist, and I talk to him when I have fights coming up. Pretty much only when I have fights coming up, just to reiterate the meaning of why I'm fighting, how I'm going to fight. It's the small things that don't matter that bug people normally in fight camps, all that stuff. Um, I feel like mental aspect is a big point because if you're not mentally there, you are suspect to lose before the fight even starts. Then when it comes to physical, it's more about everyone thrives on brute strength. I believe more in function, like body function. Your body needs to function a certain way. I need to be able to explode when I need to be able to explode, and those kind of things. My joints need to be flexible, and the, the anaerobic, no oxygen. Yeah, my anaerobic capacity for my muscles needs to be at like an all-time max, so I can squeeze for a long time.
Yeah, and obviously with how does like a training camp look like when you have like fights coming up?
Um, Training camps when I have a fight, it would be 2 a days. Um, each session would be about 2 to 3 hours, one in the morning, one at night. There are 3 days dedicated for strength and conditioning, which is again more focused on mobility and function. No like heavy lifting and stuff like that. I don't really lift for fights. Um, Sunday is a good rest, recovery, active recovery, slow cardio kind of day. Fat burn. Nutrition has to be on point. I speak with a nutritionist over at the PI as well. The UFC Institute really takes care of the fighters that take advantage of it. They make us a chart for nutrition, what to eat, when to eat it, supplements. They provide the supplements, when to take them, how to take them. Strength and conditioning guides. They'll send you a whole list of if you don't want to pay for a strength and conditioning coach, they have that for you. So you just reach out, be like, hey, I need a 4 week strength camp, and they'll send you out a list, examples of the exercises and everything.
Right. And where was that moment where you kind of knew, yeah, I'm probably gonna make it to the UFC? Because there's a low
Uh,
percentage of fighters that kind of make it.
yeah, I never ever in my mind was like, damn, the UFC is my ultimate goal. I started fighting as a way to get over anger, and as I progressed in the sport and I kept winning these fights, I came to a point where I just didn't lose anything. I never lost, and randomly I was working and my coach called me. He's like, "Hey, Mike, the UFC wants you to fight on the Contender Series." I was like, "Oh, well, yeah, let's do it. I mean, haven't lost yet, so let's keep going." And that's when I took that fight against Sadiq. That's when I was like, okay, so this is UFC caliber. I lost that fight. This is, it's not that much different. I can train a little better, get a little better, and I can make it to the UFC. And that's where I was like, you know what? I'm one fight away from getting in. Might as well just go for it.
Yeah, and how did that feel, kind of like finally getting that contract?
I don't know. It wasn't like overwhelming. It kind of felt the same as all the other contracts that I've signed. The only difference now is that it's able to provide a living for me. So it definitely provides a career instead of a hobby.
That's awesome. And when you are like preparing for a fight, kind of getting yourself in there, is there any like, do you feel any pressure from like fans or just like stepping in there in general?
That's where the mental stuff comes in. So I live in the moment within, especially for a fight. I live like 30 seconds at a time. In this 30 seconds, how do I feel? What am I doing? What can I change? Next 30 seconds, how do I feel? What am I doing? What can I change? And it's just like every 30 seconds, I'm redoing it. So I'm always in one little piece. I'm never thinking about this big picture. Like, oh my God, I'm under the spotlights. I'm walking out, and I don't get anxious. I'm not the guy I'm fighting is just like me. It's just testing my skill set. Most of the time, I'm better than you, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Obviously you've been in the UFC for a little while now. What's kind of been your favorite part about being with the company?
The freedom. There's a good part of being with the UFC that allows you to build yourself outside of the UFC. So, people know me now outside, which means I'm able to get collaborations and make deals with brands to showcase, do appearances, do seminars, stuff like that. People have seen me on live TV, so now I'm a face that everybody knows. So I get to travel around and do stuff, and that's something that I've really taken away from the UFC. I love it a lot. But freedom, I always say this in my interviews, freedom is the number one thing that the UFC has given me, because working a 9 to 5 is no longer required for my life. And that is really what I take away from the UFC. That's like the best thing.
Yeah, and kind of sticking with collaborations, I think I first saw you when you collabed with, is it Mark Zuckerberg, and you did the VR kind of experience. How was that? Yeah.
That's amazing.
I was kind of working with him, and
yeah, they're awesome. Actually, for Zuckerberg, now that I'm healed a bit, I want to train with him. So I'm trying to reach out and get in, session. I don't know where he's training at these days, but I want to go out there, and I have a lot I can teach. So it'd be fun to get a good recording of us training together. Max Holloway can join in too. I mean, we can redo this video.
Yeah, I just saw him. Yeah, I had just saw him with Max Holloway, so I found that to be pretty sick. Because I love Max Holloway. He's one of my favorite fighters. So, next question, kind of getting back in a fight. What's kind of been the most challenging fight of your career?
Probably the Mason Jones fight. For that fight, there was a lot going on. The COVID, the health issues. I got hit by a car. I ran out of money. I couldn't say no to anything that they offered. I flew to Vegas. I had to stay in Vegas for a week without leaving the hotel. So I can only go outside. I had to quarantine in my room for 2 days and then get tested every day. I could go outside and run around like the hotel building. That's the only thing I could do. Then they flew us to Abu Dhabi, where it was the same ordeal, two days stuck in the room. After that, I could go outside and run around the hotel. I did that for a week and a half until my fight came up. And I don't know, it was rough. I didn't know anything about Mason Jones. I didn't want to look him up. I didn't care. There was nothing that was going to change the fact that I needed to fight. And I showed up, showed out. It was still hard, though. It was a hard fight.
Yeah, and kind of with the most challenging, what's been your most like favorite fight to be a part of?
My favorite fight would be in the UFC. It would be Thomas Gifford, only because that was a fight that I got to show out, but I didn't get any kind of injuries. Like I finished the fight and I ran out. I jogged back to my hotel. I wasn't in any kind of pain.
Yeah, kind of with the talking about injuries, how like, after you fight and get an injury, how do you kind of deal with that setback?
Rough, because that's like my number one flaw of being a fighter is with the Lyme disease and stuff. I have weak joints, weak internals. So for me to take clashes to my joints and bends and slams and all this and that, and then my joints take a beating. So I'm always getting injured here and there in little spots. But the UFC is very good with health insurance during fights, even prior to fights and in your contract signing leading up to it, your fight camp. So after the fight, they'll cover 100% of whatever needs to be done. The only setback is that it takes a long time. Like your body takes a long time to heal.
Yeah.
The older, it takes even longer.
Yeah, and you're obviously on this 4-fight win streak at the moment. Where do you kind of want to go from here?
I want to fight soon. I want to get back in shape within the month, and then February, March, get back in the octagon.
Yeah, and I kind of said a question. How does like getting a fight kind of work? Do you sit in like a fighter's pool and they kind of just call you?
Pretty much. The fighters that want to fight, they'll tell their management, which whoever you're with, I'm with first round. So I'll tell my management, hey, look, I'm healthy. I feel good. We should start looking for a fight. Which then they're like, Mike Davis. They'll contact the matchmakers of the UFC and say, hey, Mike Davis is ready to fight. Who do we got that's also available to fight? And then they'll match you up with someone that's not like a newcomer, but they'll match you up with someone that you need to be matched up with.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It wouldn't make sense for me to fight someone that's just getting into the UFC right now, like making their debut. That wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
So they'll match me up with, like last time I got Drew Dober before my injury. People that are respected in the sport already.
Do you have any fighters you kind of look up to or like to work with, spar with, anything like that?
There's fighters at my gym that are on the up and coming. They should be in the UFC. They're really good. They're almost there though. But if I was to say I want to train with somebody, it'd probably be those guys. Fighters I look up to, Max Holloway and Dustin. Those are two people that I'm close with, good friends with, people I like to talk to, people that have showed me a lot. I've traveled across the world with Dustin, so it's been nice to see his side.
Awesome. Kind of, what's been like the most rewarding part of this entire MMA journey for you?
I'll probably dial back to the freedom. I've been able to help my mom doing fighting. I've been able to, give her what she needs. I've been able to teach her. I had her come live with me when I lived down south, trying to get her in shape. I don't know. It gives me more time to spend with the people I want to be with.
Yeah, and with the sport comes, well, with your part-time management, like, I know you train, you do content creation. How do you kind of like work all of this into like one?
My content creation is mostly formed around me being an MMA fighter. So my content comes for like at the gym. So I wake up, I train the same way you wake up and you go lift chest at the gym. I like to train instead. So I go to the gym and I just bring a camera. And whatever I catch on camera is my content.
That's awesome. Kind of the last question I have, more like a thing, but do you have any advice for anyone that would kind of want to start or is thinking about starting any type of fighting, whether it's MMA, boxing?
Yeah. Find a reason, I suppose. Just because you have aggression and anger or you have beliefs, it's not the best reason to start fighting. You get into it for the wrong reason, then your mind kind of falls apart. I would say find a good reason that fighting can help you out. Like my reason is the freedom. I get to help my family. I get to provide for people. It's a good feeling for me. Um, Start with something on the ground. You can't go backwards. How do I want to explain this? If you are a striker, it is very hard to learn wrestling. But if you're a wrestler, it's very easy to make a fist and throw your hands. So start with something on the ground. Grab BJJ or wrestling. If you want to be an MMA fighter, if you want to be a boxer, go to boxing.
And for everyone that kind of comes on here, we allow them to kind of shout out anything like social media, anything coming up. So I'll give you the floor to do that.
Dang. I am trying to get back into streaming. I know 2025 is going to be a big year for me in content creation. I'm planning to make a lot happen in 2025 through social media. So if you are out there, you want to learn MMA, you want someone to talk to, you want to learn the mental aspect of MMA, the financial game of MMA, techniques, gaming, you want to game with me, game against me, anything like that, jump in my streams, jump in my co-streams, watch the fights with me. I'm going to be doing a lot more lives in 2025. I'll probably stick to YouTube and Kick. If TikTok goes away, if TikTok doesn't go away, include TikTok. My Kick is Mike Davis UFC. Same for my YouTube.
Perfect, Mike. Everyone from the Over the Top Talk team thanks you because we know all the fighters are very busy. So we thank you for coming on here. You're our second fighter. So it's been really cool to kind of, talk to you, hear about your experience. So we thank you for your time, obviously.
Yeah, I appreciate you picking me to be on the podcast. Been good.
Perfect. And for everyone that watched, please subscribe, like, and share. Follow us on every social media. We'll put Mike's links down below. We'll put our links obviously down below, and we'll see you all in the next one. Thank you, everybody.
See you guys.